General, can I start by saying welcome to Lancashire?
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
First question really, why Lancashire for the future of Britain's cyber defences?
Well, because it's an amazing opportunity to bring together civilian industry, defence industry, academia, and an amazing mission for the country, all in one fairly clustered, tight space, and to really get the benefits of that.
What is the potential for Lancashire and the UK's cyber defence of that kind of clustering operation?
Well, I suppose the most obvious thing is some amazingly skilled, valuable jobs for the country, an amazing place to live and work, an amazing place to sort of take part in probably one of the most exciting missions you could imagine in the 21st century.
For people that don't know, the National Cyber Force is bringing together defence and intelligence capabilities, isn't it? How important is it to have that under a single umbrella? Because I believe the new commander has a military background himself.
Yeah, so it's a partnership between Strategic Command and the intelligence agencies, particularly GCHQ and SIS, but also with our scientists from the Defence Science and Technology laboratories as well. And that gives us the blend of skills that we need to be able to counter the multiple threats online with the appropriate tools and the appropriate approaches. And let's not forget that industry are a very integrated part of that team as well.
For people who are giving themselves a crash course in cyber, maybe thinking about the opportunities that it will provide to them in Lancashire, they might be surprised to find all the different strands that it entails. It's not just about defending our digital systems, it's about defending democracy from disinformation and that kind of thing, isn't it?
Absolutely right. And, a large number of democracies are having elections over the next couple of years, and ourselves and our partners around the world will be playing our part in defending that democracy, which is a real priority for any government.
People might also be surprised to hear that it's about, I've read a report recently that you published about the cognitive impact of this kind of work, and it's not just about disrupting other people's systems, it's also about sort of disrupting their relationships and their data and that kind of thing. It's almost like a giant set of mind games really, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I think people mainly focus on sort of cyber in terms of data and networks, and they forget that it's the human beings connected to those networks which is really, really important. In our case, it's really important to defend our people, our soldiers, our sailors, aviators, from that disinformation, that misinformation, from people trying to shape their perceptions and change their behaviour. But yes, people forget about the human very often in this.
Working in that kind of environment, how difficult would it be to step away from it at the end of the day? It might give people a different understanding of exactly what's involved in a cyber role compared to just that traditional tech digital focus that many people might think it revolves around.
Yes, there's a very strong involvement in that tech digital world, but in something like the National Cyber Force, of course, we're not just talking about technical roles. They're hugely important, for software developers, coders, software engineers. But we also have a range of roles that require, some understanding of the technology, so mission managers, planners, overseers, analysts, and then a whole range of non-technical roles. We need lawyers, we need comms people, we need HR folk who are all going to play their own part in the mission. I think what you mentioned about not being able to step away from it is interesting, because one of the features of cyber is it's always on. We're in absolute constant competition. And as we would say in the army, we're in constant contact with the enemy. So, and that's a function of, Strategic Command, the piece of defence that I belong to. Most of our people are in constant contact, and therefore we do need to think really carefully about how to give people rest and make sure, because this is a marathon, not a sprint, to make sure they're ready for tomorrow.
There are also considerations of ethics as well, aren't there? The report that I referred to talks about using cyber power responsibly and being accountable. Who, though, are you accountable to, and who sets our national values when it comes to things like cyber?
So that's a great question. In overall governance terms, the National Cyber Force reports up through both the Foreign Secretary and the Defence Secretary, and then it's subject to a range of oversight through Parliament to make sure that sort of ethical basis is kept in check, and that we are living up to those responsible aspirations that we have, to make sure, frankly, that we stay being the good guys.
On that basis, you've also got to be nimble, haven't you, and agile, so there's got to be some kind of operational independence, I imagine.
Absolutely, there needs to be some level of operational independence, but we need to be quite clear we're operating right up against the limits of what it's legal to do. and therefore there's very appropriate oversight mechanisms to keep us in place there. I think the nimbleness really comes in the fact that a lot of our adversaries aren't concerned by those ethics, and so some people might suggest they have a sort of head start on us. So we need to be doubly quick to be able to counter them, whilst they may have fewer ethical concerns than we do.
Just finally, what would be your vision for the National Cyber Force by the end of the decade, and particularly its place here in Lancashire?
So, by 2025, their new home up here in Samlesbury will be established, and we'll be going from a workforce of hundreds at that stage to, by the end of the decade, thousands. And I think that's immensely exciting. It's going to be a hugely important impact for the local area, and a lot of the sort of vision of the cyber corridor up here will be really in play by then, and I think that's going to be hugely exciting for the region.
Lieutenant General, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kerry Harrison. I lead the Lancashire Digital Skills Partnership.
Kerry, I imagine it's quite easy to enthuse young people about getting involved in the cyber world and the idea of being a digital spook, but what about when it comes into contact with the reality of the qualifications you need? Does it get more difficult then?
It's definitely a much more difficult challenge when you get to the qualification side, because there's not one route into cyber, there's multiple routes. And it's not just about, we talk about cyber as this homogenous thing, and like a cyber is just one career, and actually it's multiple careers, and therefore we need people with the tech skills, and there's a variety of roles with needing people with tech skills, as well as we need people who are linguists and behavioural psychologists. There's a whole range of people we need, and therefore the routes into it are also quite not as clear as just you do this one course and you do this one degree and therefore that's it, because there'll be lots of different degrees you could do, there's lots of different qualifications, you could do a digital T-level, you could do an apprenticeship, so there's lots of different routes. So part of our job is to try and demystify that and make it a really clear understanding of the different options that you have, and also that just because you didn't do GCSE computer science, which would be a great starting point, but just because you haven't done it doesn't mean that you can't then do anything else post 16 or post 18 to actually access a career in cyber. And similarly, as an adult, it doesn't mean that you can't do it then either, that you couldn't then access a skills bootcamp or a degree or other qualification and career change. There is a certain amount of trying to demystify the exact route into it, because there isn't just one way of becoming a cyber specialist. So yes, it can be really exciting for young people to actually see what's out there for them and the different skills that they need, and that it can match their different preferences and their different, what they like about a job or their particular strengths, and that there's something for just about everyone.
Why is it such a broad sector to be able to get into? Why are there so many capabilities that are beneficial?
I think it's because it hits nearly, depending on whether it's, the high security level stuff that GCHQ and partners in the NCF do, or whether it's, a business that needs cyber security for their business, or the general sort of cyber hygiene that you need for yourself. There's lots of different roles within that, and so it's quite a vast and growing sort of sector. And therefore, you need a diverse sort of thought patterns, from, if nothing else. So we need people from all sorts of backgrounds, from different thought patterns, just to come through and actually bring. If you're trying to solve a problem, you want a whole range of people to be able to do that. And so if everybody in a room has the same, it's like that, it comes back to that homogenous thought. If we all see cyber as one homogenous thing, it's like seeing a problem. If we all come at it from the same angle, then actually we're never, you might not solve it, because we're all thinking of it in the same way. But if you have a whole, diverse group of people in a room with lots of different skill sets, it's easier to solve a problem because you've got all those diverse sets of skills in the room. And yeah, having the text, so it is, in that respect, really welcoming of that diversity. And yeah, we do need people with the tech skills. Yes, we need lots of people with digital skills, but you need people to understand cultures and behaviours of people to inform how they react to situations. For me, it is about starting early so that they understand and don't close doors to themselves. And I don't mean that in a qualification sense, but also in that kind of shutting doors in that people like me don't do jobs like that. And it's that kind of actually people like you do jobs like that, and
the mentality of the individual.
So it's that kind of actually opening their eyes to say, yeah, people like you could do jobs like that. People in one part of the county, or a particular gender, or people a particular background. Absolutely, these jobs are all for you.
My name is Rebecca Robinson. I work for Lancaster University and I lead something called the Centre for Digital Innovation.
Rebecca, how important is it to have a diverse workforce in the cyber sector? Are you at risk of missing out on some of the best people if there are groups of people that don't feel that cyber is a role for them?
Yeah, diversity within the cyber sector is absolutely critical. If we think about any kind of problem solving, if we all approach it from the same perspective, if we all try to approach that challenge with that same mindset, we're only going to come up with one solution. Now that might be the best solution for a particular challenge or for a particular type of person and the way that they interact with their world, but actually that doesn't make it the right solution for everybody, and it also doesn't necessarily allow us to be coming up with the most creative solutions. Actually, by enabling us to think about a diverse workforce, so this is people so I'm obviously female within this sector. It's quite a male-dominated sector, so we're trying to introduce more women to the area.
Why is that, do you think? Why is it so male-dominated?
I think traditionally it looks like it's a male role. Quite often all STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, look like male roles. But there's actually no good reason for that. There's no manual labour, there's nothing physical that's required that requires a male physique necessarily to be able to overcome these. Actually all women can do them.
And isn't the irony that actually the stats show that women and girls are better at those subjects than boys, slightly marginally?
I would agree, definitely. I mean, we need a whole bunch of different skills, right? So we don't just need to have technical skills. We don't just want people who are doing coding. We want to make sure that we've also got people who understand people, psychology. That user interface with technology is really, really critical. And if we think about cybersecurity, the biggest risk factor is the human, actually. It's the person in that mix. Over 90% of breaches are as a result of human error. So we need to understand people. So psychology is really, really important. But when we're also thinking about people, we should be thinking about management and leadership skills. We need to be thinking about actually how can we make sure that if we're running a business that it's as secure as possible? How can you embed culture within that business to make sure that cybersecurity is something that people consider irrelevant of their role, whether it be a technical role or not? And so that's really important. Anyone who enjoys problem solving, puzzle solving, all those types of things are really good skills to be able to embed within kind of problem solving and cyber challenges. So we're always looking for a more diverse workforce. And I think that is, I mentioned kind of gender there, but I'm talking about a whole bunch of different diversity. So neurodiverse. It's really, really important that we also kind of open up that world to people who are neurodiverse. If you think about certain people who've got a neurodiverse, they might have hyperfocus. That can be such a talent. It can literally be the kind of the crown, if you like, for them to be able to focus on something so in depth.
How difficult is it to get groups of people from diverse backgrounds that wouldn't necessarily gravitate towards cyber into that kind of space at an academic level?
It's tricky. It's really, really tricky. But events like today are really, really important. So by bringing in pupils from schools and colleges, we hope to just kind of give that little bit of spark, ignite something in them that maybe kind of shows them an area of interest. Cyber is a huge growth area for Lancashire. We've got GCHQ's headquarters now in Manchester. We've got the launch of the National Cyber Force in Salisbury. Lancaster University is a National Cyber Security Centre triple recognised for our research and our education. And we also have got our first ever UK's Cyber MBA, which has also been recognised by the NCSC as excellent. So all of that combined, from school kind of delivery right the way through up to kind of master's level, is really, really important to be able to kind of spark that and allow that talent growth.
I'm Andy Walker and I'm Chief Exec of Lancashire Enterprise Partnership.
Andy, what kind of a ripple effect do you think the National Cyber Force headquarters coming to Lancashire will have on the sector in Lancashire, really? Because obviously, by definition, we're dealing with a sector that is, global in terms of reach and technology. Does it really matter that this is on our doorstep in Lancashire?
It's ironic, isn't it, that something that's so effectively based in the cloud and digital, that physical proximity does feel as though it's important. By its very nature, the secrecy and the the integrity that surrounds the operation, and the way in which the UK has chosen to deliver this kind of activity makes it slightly sort of opaque for businesses as to how they might engage with it. And I think we've got a balance. There's clearly talent, and there are clearly companies that already within Lancashire that can play into this. There are clearly companies that will benefit from the growing digital and cyber capabilities that exist, because cyber is pervasive across all of Lancashire's key sectors now, and it is a skill set and a technology that needs to be adopted universally. But I think for the first time we're seeing, in terms of a ripple effect, the supply chain and companies who might potentially work with National Cyber Force come forward proactively and say, whereabouts in Lancashire could we locate? Where can we access skills? What type of facilities are available? How can we hook up with your local universities? So this feels like a real unprecedented opportunity for us.
Is Lancashire well placed to take advantage of that opportunity, do you feel?
Lancashire's already well placed, but we need to work hard to ensure we maximise that opportunity. It's a competitive world. As you've said, this is a global industry, and we are trying to establish a new node, a new location, a new cluster, which it's not just Lancashire, it's an investment which means benefit for the whole of the northwest of England. And we need to work with colleagues in Greater Manchester through the Northwest Cyber Corridor and make sure we fully maximise those opportunities. That's around things like skills, around things like research, and making sure our universities are plumbed in.
One of the challenges that National Cyber Force itself acknowledges is the need to be able to scale up. Yeah. Do you think Lancashire will be able to rise to that challenge?
I do. I think we're really well placed, both in terms of the quality of life offer that we have, and in terms of the way in which we can attract and retain skills and capabilities within the area. It's not the first time we've seen sort of clusters grow. We've got a really interesting set of digital capabilities and electech clusters developing in other parts of the northern parts of the county and up into South Cumbria, and that access, which runs up to Barrow, and the new working orders that are in that part of the region is going to add scale and volume and demand, which would naturally draw people in.
Part of this event is the launch of the Lancashire Cyber Partnership, isn't it? Now, partnership, stakeholders, they're those buzzwords, aren't they? And sometimes they can feel a bit meaningless, but in a sector like this, there are just so many strands to it. It really is going to be important to collaborate and work together, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think you see just with the National Cyber Force itself, you need the site where they're going. You need transport and communications to be right. You need places to house the staff that will be working there. But as I say, you also need those links with academia and need those links with the skills base of Lancashire to make these things work. And it isn't purely a talking shop. These are organisations that are genuinely putting their hand in their pocket and investing in these things because it's good for their institutions and it's good for the region as a whole.
None of this is going to land in Lancashire's lap, is it? It's going to have to work hard to make this a success.
I think we just need to keep up the momentum, and we need to show that we are a capable and proficient partner who's able to respond to this demand. I'd say for the first time in my career, we are seeing a level of interest that's significantly more. We're being approached around where can I find office accommodation. We're being approached around how can I align myself with local universities, or even how can I invest and sponsor community events and develop a footprint in the area and get to know Lancashire.
Rob, I understand you're quite passionate about the idea of cyber being incorporated into various different disciplines and academic subjects, aren't you? Why do you think it's important for that to happen?
Cyber is going to affect everybody. We're no longer in the land of geeks in the bedroom, so everybody has some digital device, some access or manipulation of computers, and everyone needs to be aware of it. Cybersecurity is something that affects all of our lives, particularly at university where we handle large quantities of data. We have our research systems and platforms. We need to think about cybersecurity. How do we make sure that they're safe and secure? But then when we translate that out into industry, if we look at people working on CNC machines or in a garage forecourt where there's videos or there's control systems, the risk of those being compromised, whether it's through deliberate cyber attack or inadvertent use of the wrong sort of systems, it's going to affect everybody. So we need to be aware, we need to understand the risks, we need to understand the basic ways of mitigating against them and where that potential might be.
Do you think the population is ready for that kind of submersion, if for want of a better word, into the world of cyber, or are there not some people who would quite happily devolve it to a theoretical higher power and hope that they were acting in your best interests?
I think the problem is when we devolve it to a higher power or we defer it, we're mystifying it. It becomes something to be worried about, something to be scared of. When we have some understanding, when we have some knowledge of what's going on, what the risks are, we can make sensible choices for ourselves, and we can carry out our own protection. If we look at our younger generation, and I've got a 14-year-old boy, they're very aware, they're very understanding of how technology works, the interconnectedness of things. They need to be aware of the risks and how to manage their own personal identity and privacy within those systems. So by putting it to a higher power, we're simply making it mysterious and slightly worrying. By taking control of it, by understanding, by empowering people, we give people the ability to really think about it and use it and embed it in what they do, protecting their own safety, but also giving them the peace of mind and the certainty that they know what's going on.
Now, one of your titles, quite interesting, Professor of Extended Reality. Just explain to me exactly what that means, and is that really a world that we're all going to have to inhabit shortly? Or are we inhabiting it already and we just don't know it?
My research for 30 years has been in the world of virtual reality, of augmented reality, particularly large-scale immersive systems that we can occupy and we can interact without thinking about keyboards or mice directly. In recent years, what I've become very aware of is the vast quantities of data around cybersecurity. So a lot of my work takes cybersecurity data, applies AI, machine learning, data science to analyse it, to break it down into systems and models. And then I use the immersive technologies that I developed to put people inside it so that we can have sensible collaborations around data. And really what we're trying to do is put a person in the loop to help them understand and explain how the AI systems are working, but also do something that AI and machine learning struggles with, to spot emerging trends. In archaeology, there's very often a phrase that three stones in the ground make a wall, and we have the same principle. So if we put data into a model or a format that presents it, we can start to build those hypotheses ourselves, see those links, and then take them back into more structured science to explore them, to verify them, and to try them out.
The way you talk there, you sound like there is still quite a role for the human in this space, which might surprise some people, because the talk lately of AI and the future seems to suggest that humans are almost going to be subordinate to the systems.
I think there's a lot of fear about the idea of one AI system offensively attacking another one that's actively defending it. At the end of the day, we need to be able to understand, we need to be able to explain. If we're going to operate in a safe and ethical environment, we need to actually be able to explain what our AI platforms are doing, and explain them to other people, to give confidence, to ensure that we have trust in those systems. But ultimately, our AI platforms are very good at responding to what they've been trained to look for. They're very bad at spotting emerging trends, and
is that right? Because you wouldn't get that impression, would you, from listening to the talk that there is in the media? You get the impression that AI is kind of the highest form of analysis.
It is a very strong form of analysis. We train an AI platform on a training set of data. Once it's trained to a level of accuracy, of precision that we want it to be, typically into the 90% accuracy, we then use it again and again and again on the same problem. Developing systems that can respond, particularly to the creative and randomness of our own brains and our activities and the inspirational thought that people have, is very hard. So actually having people in the loop who can see and respond to those, and giving them information in a form that's very accessible, that they don't have to put a huge amount of cognition behind understanding, so they can spend more time thinking about what they're seeing and manipulating in the data, is a huge advantage. It means we can respond faster, we can spot new trends as they're emerging and in very early stages of emergence, and work to them very quickly.
Is it fair to say human and AI strengths combined would be the ideal vision of the future?
I think one of the best ways to describe it is, I have a colleague here at Central Lancashire who looks at AI and where it's going, and their view is very much that what AI will do is give us our best possible day every day, responding to us, helping us, assisting us in the data, helping us with the analysis, but it's still essential that we're there to do the cognitive and creative thought that's required to create that inspirational connection of ideas together that enables us to investigate, to analyse, to draw new hypotheses, to develop new theories.
Positive to end on there, Rob. A future for the human. Thanks very much indeed for that.
Thank you.